Is Big Ramy out of the 2023 Mr Olympia? We get that answered in this video. Plus, Mr Olympia head judge Steve Weinberger has some surprising advice for Big Ramy. What's up, desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. Before we get into this one, I want to encourage you guys, if you like and appreciate this content, give the video a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. And as Tarek El-Guindi would say of Mr Olympia TV, subscribe or your life is going to be miserable. So make sure you do that right now. But let's get into this one. So Steve Weinberger, Mr Olympia head judge, was on the latest episode of the Menace podcast. The full podcast, the link is in the description below, with Milos Sarcev in the top left, Dennis James in the top right-hand corner, Chris Cormier, the real deal, in the bottom left-hand corner, and Steve Weinberger, the Mr Olympia head judge, in the bottom right. And he had some surprising advice for Big Ramy and basically sort of made some calls on why Big Ramy was maybe not better at the 2023 Arnold Classic, plus much more. Also, Dennis James in this one reveals why Big Ramy didn't look as good at that 2023 Pittsburgh Pro Guest Posing and what his plans are for the 2023 Mr Olympia. Is he in? Is he out? Is he a maybe? Dennis James answers that on this one. So let's get into this one. I'm going to be reacting to what was on the latest episode of the Menace podcast.
Yeah, I have a question for Steve. As the head judge, what advice, but as a head judge, what advice do you have for Big Ramy?
We had talk right after the Olympia. We had a talk even during this last previous week. I think he might need a break, honestly, and leave his legs alone. His legs are way out of proportion. His back still has to come up, and his shoulders and arms look like they just kind of deflated a little bit. He really did not look good in Pittsburgh. I think he might need some time, honestly.
So Steve Weinberger, the Mr Olympia head judge, was basically talking about, the arms being deflated, the legs being too big and out of proportion, the back still needing to come up. And it leads me to think, if these things aren't corrected, at least through the stem cells, because I can't imagine they just come back on their own when they've actually sort of, I suppose, shrunk. The arms aren't what they used to be. The back isn't what it used to be. I mean, it was better at the Arnold Classic, I think, than the Olympia. But how much better was it? And will it be able to come back to the level where the Mr Olympia judges are actually happy? You can let me know in the comments what you think about that.
Well,
maybe a year to step away. I don't think he's done. He's still young. He can still do. What is he? He's in his early 30s, right?
Oh, no. He's 39.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
you could revamp your body.
I think he needs a break. I really do.
Training.
That's the problem with Ramy. Ramy likes to train. So now, of course, I know that he's off since after the Arnold, and then he had Ramadan.
So when Dennis James says off, that means off PEDs, performance enhancers. So Big Ramy is off since the Arnold Classic, and he had Ramadan, which obviously alludes to that Big Ramy actually still does do Ramadan, where basically you don't eat or drink in daylight hours. So all his eating and drinking would have been done at night. So he's been off gear, plus also doing Ramadan, which is a challenge in itself, for the past however many months.
Right. So he's not going to look good. He's not going to look good.
He's also doing his stem cell treatment, where they're telling him now to not train his upper body. So for 2 more weeks, he can't train his upper body. So he didn't train his upper body this whole time. Only he's still training legs. And I'm glad you just said it. Leave them legs alone. I mean,
the legs look. That's exactly. His legs looked really good, and the rest of his body didn't. So what you're saying makes so much sense with what I saw in Pittsburgh.
So Big Ramy hasn't been training his upper body as well. So obviously being off gear, doing Ramadan, so probably getting less food in overall, and just not a convenient schedule. Plus, obviously not being able to train your upper body, plus being off gear, all those factors together is why Big Ramy didn't look as good at the 2023 Pittsburgh Pro Guest Posing. And I predicted prior to that guest posing that Big Ramy might not look as good because of those factors, because of Ramadan, because obviously he's going to get stem cell stuff. But I especially mentioned because of Ramadan, and we hadn't seen any updates from Ramy either. So it all makes sense.
Yeah. So he said, because I asked him, I said, are you going to do the Olympia this year? He said, you know what? I don't know. I have to start training. I'll start training again in 2 weeks when they allow him to start training. And then he will see how his body responds.
Wow. So
he might need a year break, honestly.
Yeah.
He might, but you know better than me on that, honestly.
What would you mean? What would you mean by a break? Like, how long would you?
Like, I mean, not dieting, hardcore training, put that mask back on, and then bring it back down.
Well, the thing is,
More than 2 months, I mean. You know what I mean? Because if he's getting ready for the Olympia now, what has he got? 3 months to really train, and he's got to start his diet?
Steve Weinberger makes a great point, because it's about a week from this podcast, because this was recorded early, plus it only came out a couple of days ago, so this was recorded about a week ago now. So Big Ramy can start training again in 1 week's time. So how far are we out from Mr. Olympia? I mean, he's still got plenty of time to put in a bit of off-season training, try to bring up those body parts, and he was having localized stem cells this year. So prior to the Arnold Classic, between the Olympia and Arnold, he had the stem cells basically put in through an IV, but he's actually having it done localized, and I'm assuming that's why he can't train his upper body during this time, because he's having it done in the lats and the arms. Now, will this make a huge difference prior to the Olympia? I mean, what we saw at the Arnold, in my opinion, I thought his back overall looked better, but he wasn't opening it up at the Olympia. So was it the fact that he wasn't opening it up, or was it the fact that actual muscle came back onto that body part? Now, did it come back onto the arms? I think they were maybe marginally bigger. It's hard to say. We'd have to really put it side by side and break that down. But I think that it did help, but will he get enough help from doing localized stem cells, obviously missing out on training and then coming back? I mean, if his triceps, arms, and back start to come back even more at the Olympia, and he decides to do the 2023 Mr. Olympia, because as Dennis James says, it's a big maybe right now if he'll do that or not. I mean, it would be a great endorsement for stem cells, and I'm sure most pro bodybuilders will be going over there to get it if they do have the funds, because Chris Bumstead right now is going over and getting it just to reduce overall body inflammation with his health conditions. But I think that this is a smart move from Big Ramy getting the stem cells, but will it be enough, and will he compete in the 2023 Mr. Olympia? You guys can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below.
When somebody says, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to take a year off, and this is what
they never come back sometimes. They never come back.
Yeah.
So that leads me to wonder, is Big Ramy actually finished? Because when guys do take that year off, do they always come back? It doesn't always happen. It's not always just a automatic thing when you've been doing it for a long time. He can get comfortable in a life away from the stage. And we may have seen Big Ramy for the last time, but he did post up these photos up on his story. I don't know if they're recent or what they are, but he looks fantastic if these are recent for sure. So, I mean, the problems are still there with his physique, but if he's getting this stem cell, if he's able to get his muscle back, because the guy actually who's doing his stem cells did say he sort of had, chronic inflammation around the nerves, and that's why he wasn't feeling those body parts. And we did see those quad holes fill out, at least the Arnold Classic. It was something put in there to fill it out. Chad Nichols did come on Desktop Bodybuilding and Bodybuilding University, which is Big Ramy's coach, and obviously coach of Ronnie Coleman, who led him to 8 Mr. Olympias and many, many other greats as well. He said that he saw the weekly photo updates, or the updates he's getting, and they were progressively getting better, the quad holes. So unless he's lying to us, it seems like the stem cells were absolutely working according to Chad Nichols, and he said 100% that's what it was.
In his lower back, is that something that can come back?
I honestly don't know that. That's something that only he could prove us. I really don't know. Honestly.
Have you seen it done?
No.
I've never seen it happen like this. I've never seen someone go from,
from being unbelievable to not so unbelievable.
Having a tricep stick out the here, all of a sudden to lose the outer head.
And the delts to disappear too. I honestly, I love him. What I like about him too is the way he took that loss. He came over and hugged me, said, I love you. He was a gentleman. Mm-hmm. And he was a gentleman last week in the gym, taking pictures with everybody. He was a gentleman at the show. He is a class act. I love him. I think he's a great representative.
So obviously it seems like Steve Weinberger, Mr. Olympia head judge, absolutely loves Big Ramy. So it doesn't seem like there's any hard feelings about him missing the Pittsburgh Pro Guest Posing. Obviously that's not Steve Weinberger's show, but you'd think if there was any sort of funny business going on, but Steve Weinberger loves Big Ramy. And he definitely does. And Big Ramy was out there in his gym in Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym out there in Syosset, New York, over the past week, and he was talking to Steve, and it seems like they have a close relationship. So hopefully Big Ramy is able to get the help with the stem cells, and like Dennis James, who was obviously coaching Big Ramy, not coaching him, but basically having Camp Menace those last however many weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks before Mr. Olympia wins. He's talking about it, saying he's never seen it like this, where, sort of the head of the tricep disappears and all that. So hopefully whatever Big Ramy does from this point onwards with the stem cells, all these other treatments, he's able to get that fullness back. But let's listen on.
When you compare him from the Olympia to the Arnold, what was the difference, or why do you think, this is actually a question that I had. So why did he not place in the top 3, for instance, at the Arnold?
Honestly, I think he just still did not improve, and he fell down even more. He didn't look any better at the Arnold, really, to tell you the truth.
Oh, so you don't think he was better at the Arnold?
I don't think so, no.
I thought he was bigger at the Arnold.
I didn't think so.
Well, especially the legs. I mean,
the legs are always big. Legs are never a problem for Ramy. You don't even have to train legs.
I mean, Steve Weinberger is obviously a Mr. Olympia head judge, but I've got to, I suppose, politely disagree. I think Big Ramy was dramatically bigger, and according to the scale, I believe he was dramatically bigger as well. I can't remember how many pounds Chad Nichols said he was up, or Big Ramy said he was up in weight, but he was definitely dramatically bigger. How much of that was just on the legs, though? The legs were enormous at the Arnold Classic, but at the Mr. Olympia, they were well down on what we saw at the Arnold, and well down on what we saw in previous years as well, and the quad holes were much more evident. Now, they were completely blown out at the Arnold Classic, and they didn't have very deep lines, but they did look, I'd say, overall more impressive. Was it out of proportion to his physique? Absolutely, but he still has a... Was it out of proportion to his physique? Absolutely it was, but I think that it was a much better look overall. I believe his conditioning was good, at least as good as the Olympia, and there was more pop to his physique. So I thought Big Ramy did deserve to be moved around in that first call out just to see what it looked like, because he had some freaky mass, and it sort of went underrated because of him placing in 4th and being compared to Clarita at the prejudging. But I think at finals, Big Ramy came back way better. I think he deserved to look in at least at the finals in that first call out. But let me know your thoughts on this for Big Ramy. Will Big Ramy compete at the 2023 Mr. Olympia? Also, what do you think about the difference between the Mr. Olympia in 2022 and the Arnold Classic in 2023? Guys, if you like this content, give a video a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you won't miss out on any videos from myself, Xavier Wills, here at Desktop Bodybuilding. So I'm Xavier Wills, this is Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are